When you throw it on the ground, everything will just rot down unless it's glass or plastic or other kinds of trash. But everything basically, if it's organic, can be returned into the soil, and then it builds some more soil. It's a beautiful cycle. It's the best way to recycle. It's that cycle that recycle comes from. The power of mulch. Unleash the power of mulch. At least I'm talking about organic mulch, not shredded tire rubber, not little bitty bits of gravel or plastic, no. Mixed hardwood would be what I prefer, but I would also take like rotten hay or straw or grass clippings. Throw them all up on the ground. Make it loamy, 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 loamy. Loamy, loamy, loam. Make it loamy, loamy, loamy. Throw it on the ground. Hey kids, how y'all doing? I will try to remember your request like rubbery eggs. Your request of rubbery eggs. I'm assuming it's a request, but thank you. Yes, throw everything on the ground like rubbery eggs. Throw your rubbery eggs on the ground. Something's going to come and eat them and recycle it into some sort of soil. How you guys doing this evening? I wanted to do a live stream yesterday, but I ended up hanging out with a friend, and it got so late. I said, you know, nobody's going to listen to a live stream at 11 o'clock at night, and I should probably just go to bed. I was going to do this live stream yesterday, but instead, for those of you that are here today, this live stream is for you. It's a request. Yeah, like if you don't save the princess the first time, you have to do a request. It's nice to see you, B. Nice to see you, Cheryl, Alex, Shawnee Grows, Starhammer01. And Source, thank you. Had to turn off yesterday's for this one. I appreciate it. Thank you for showing up live. Hey, Laura. Thank you very much for the super chat, Bobbert. God in the greenhouse. There's a name. Good combination there. Hey, Colleen. Palmetto Paratrooper. Nice to see you again. Anon Delverse. Good to see you. You know you're early when Mr. Good is still strumming the old guitar. Hey, William. Good to see you. I see you, Atlanta Gardner. Colin. William, Derek, nice to see you. Derek, you gave me a variegated plant that looks somewhat like parsley, but it's sort of a creeping plant. I'm not exactly sure what it is. You know what that variegated parsley looking plant is? It's definitely in that same parsley celery zone, but it creeps and it seems to make little rhizomes beneath the ground that want to spread, and I can't exactly figure out what it is. I think it's edible. I hope it's edible. I almost ate it. Hey, Monkey Mommy. Good to see you again. Mulch is awesome. Sheet mulching is better. Hey, Patrick. William, thank you. I'm glad you love my books. Much appreciated. Mugwort. Boom. There we go. Thank you. Note to self. Mugwort. Just write myself notes like mugwort, and then future me will know what that means, most likely. So, it's good to see y'all, guys. Diascaria. Diascaria. Salutations, Sam. Alright, so let's talk about mulch. So I did a video, let's see, what was it, about a year ago, on mulch. And I was standing by a tree that had been knocked over in a windstorm. And it pulled up this big circle of earth full of roots. And I stopped by the side of the road when I was driving down through the Florida Panhandle. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, look at how much of that root mass is right there in the top surface. It's a thick, twisted mat of roots, and the whole thing had just fallen over and brought that big root mess up in the air. It was an oak tree that had gotten blown over. And I thought, this is a good example of why we mulch. Now you might think you're mulching so your trees don't blow over in a windstorm. No. No, that wasn't the takeaway. The takeaway on it was that a lot of the feeder root activity is taking place right up there near the surface. So if you've got that, well, I hear the train a-coming, it's coming round the bend. No, I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that. I can't do that justice. But a lot of those feeder roots are right there in the top surface. So when you see this disc of thick roots that came up with the tree, you're kind of getting a look at how that tree is feeding. And in that video, I talked about how when we had a front yard that was sandy, poor quality soil, and I stuck a few fruit trees in it, and I did not mulch around them, they really just sat there for a couple of years until we put a deep layer of mulch around them, and then the next year they took off. And a few people said, well, that sounds like the old adage, you know, year 1 they sleep, year 2 they creep, year 3 they leap. And that's a saying about fruit trees, that, you know, it takes really 3 years for them to really want to run and get rolling. And that's a valid point. However, I have seen the difference, and in particular, the difference between a tree that is well watered and mulched and cared for compared to a tree that is put in the front yard and is surrounded by grass. And my theorizing, or my extrapolation on grass, was based on a study that the University of Minnesota had done some years ago, where they looked at the feeder roots of fruit trees surrounded by grass, and they said that a lot of competition is taking place in the root zone of young trees with the grass. That the grass roots grew roughly twice as fast as the tree roots. They filled the same strata of the soil. They absorbed the water and the nutrients rapidly, and they competed directly with the tree roots early on. Now later on, when your trees are more mature and they're surrounded by grass, the tree can take care of itself. It's not that big a deal. But in the establishment phase, if you want a tree to establish quickly, you keep the grass back from the trunk of that tree. A lot of people plant a fruit tree and water it in, and then within a few weeks the lawn is starting to grow back around that tree, and then by the end of the year it's just grass all the way up tight to the trunk of that young tree. And grass in particular likes to fight with trees. The grasslands and the forests tend to be enemies. They have different strategies. There have been studies showing that grasslands tend to be more bacterially dominated in the soil. Forests tend to be more fungally dominated in the soil. The forest floor is a floor of mulch. Usually not a bunch of greenery in most forests. In most forests, when the canopy gets closer to closing and the trees are really happy and everything's looking great, there's a lot of leaf fall. There are sticks that are falling, their fruits, nuts, etc. They all fall to the ground and they rot, and they make this beautiful humusy layer of fungal rich soil. And if you go back there after it's been good and rainy for a bit, you'll often find all kinds of mushroom growth. You've got tree trunks that fall, and then they're covered with various wood-eating mushrooms. And this is your big mulch pile. The trees are creating their own mulch, and they live in it, and they love it. Whereas grasses, they do make a bit of thatch, but they often don't have that same kind of structure. They tend to have more of bacterially dominated. It tends to, the material that is at the top of the surface of the grassland tends to rot down quicker, etc. Now you can build topsoil in grass. It is much better to have grass than it is to have bare soil, obviously. Grasses pump a lot of sugars into the ground. There's a lot of life that takes place around that grass. And if you add in grazing animals, you can build really quickly. You can build topsoil much quicker than people think. People think that cows are a damaging thing, but cows are actually a really great way to build topsoil if they are managed properly and mob grazed through areas. They crush the grass down, they hammer it into the ground, they manure the area, they crop it, they drool on it, they urinate on it, and it builds thicker, stronger grass and humus in the soil. All that trampling and cropping and manuring builds up grass, and there have been a lot of people that have done excellent work with regenerative farming and grazing grass and increasing the vigor and even the species diversity of grasslands and just building topsoil quickly. But the thing to remember is that this takes place because you have a covering on the soil. It's been said that nature is modest. She wishes to be covered. And so if that's covered with a cover crop, if that's covered with mulch, if that's covered with a forest, she doesn't want to be stripped bare and left to the elements. So I like that. I like that as something to remember. And you know that I don't have any problem tilling up an area and planting potatoes and growing potatoes and getting a yield out of the soil, replacing grass for a period of time with some tillage and mounded up space for potatoes and growing potatoes or growing corn or things like that. But ideally, you can keep that ground covered. And if you do that kind of a tillage, to be able to replace some of that organic material by cover cropping afterwards. And it also depends on your soil type too. There are soils down here that you could probably just till perpetually without doing a lot of damage because it's a sandy structure. It's not like you're going to burn it out. It's already low organic matter. It's mostly just turning sand over and macerating the weeds into the ground and planting. It's not subject to making hard pan or that kind of thing. But all that discussion aside, there's a lot of arguments to be made for avoiding the tillage and having deep mulch in gardens or having a cover crop on top of the ground, etc. So today we're going to cover mulch in your garden and why it may be more powerful than you think. And obviously some of what I have here ties in, or it's covered in this book, Compost Everything. If you don't have a copy of Compost Everything, I highly recommend it. It will change the way you look at composting by getting rid of all the rules and giving you composting ideas for people that ain't got time for that. So Compost Everything, I put a link at the top of the chat, and this is how I support my family. So if you appreciate what I do and you want to buy the book, please click the link and get a copy, and I think you will find it inspiring. Just read the reviews on Amazon and you'll see how people have been inspired by this book. I told a story a few days ago in one of my streams, but I think it bears repeating. I was at a 4th of July party, and there were some very nice looking fruit trees that were thick, lush, very green. They looked like they had been irrigated and fertilized. But they weren't. I said, "What did you do to make these trees look so happy?" "Oh, we just put a ton of mulch out there." And so I'm looking at the ground. I start digging into it, and I realize it's just a thick layer of well broken down, probably mixed hardwood mulch. They had gotten some dump trucks from somewhere of mulch and just dumped it over this area and planted their fruit trees in it, and they didn't feed them anything else. They just planted them and mulched them well. And they've got these peaches that are disease-free, rich green leaves, thick trunk caliper. I said, "How old are these trees?" "We put them in 2 years ago." 2 years, and they already looked way better than those trees that I had just planted in the grass years ago. The trunk size was about that big, so they probably would have started about that big. Trunk size is about that big. Trees were taller than I am, but they had pruned them back nicely earlier and had got them topped out nicely, so they had that good vase shape going on. They had done the right thing with the pruning, but a lot of people would tell you, oh, you need to feed those trees. You know, give them 10-10-10, or, you know, give them a balanced organic fertilizer of some sort. And make sure you spray the leaves for this and spray for that, and, you know, you could foliar feed them to do this, and you could lime, and you could do all that sort of stuff. No, just mulch. I was looking at those trees, and I said, these trees love where they are. One of the main reasons people put down mulch is to keep the weeds suppressed. Another reason is that it looks nice. It makes your landscaping look finished when you put some mulch down. Those are the two main things. It's like aesthetics and weed suppression, often. But after that, mulch also keeps the ground cool beneath. When you have sun up in the 90s, I remember reading that the surface of the soil could reach 120 degrees on a sunny day from absorbing that solar energy and just heating up hotter and hotter and hotter. And if you've ever been to the beach on a sunny day, the beach sand can be hotter than the sun. Hotter than the surface of the sun. No, I don't mean that. I mean the feeling of the sun on your back is tolerable. But walking on the beach sand, oh my goodness, it's hot. It's accumulating that heat and it's burning. So imagine you've got a tree with young feeder roots that have been up there near the surface. And they've been up there because they had a nice rain yesterday, and it's just built this beautiful little network of roots to capture it. Those roots are always doing this through the soil, grabbing what they can and moving around. And they've grown up there because you have a good rain. Well, the next day the sun comes out and it bakes the surface of that soil, and it gets up 120 degrees. What are those roots going to do? They're going to burn. They're going to have to retreat to a lower soil strata. They're going to be less efficient at taking the rain next time the rain comes. They're going to have to grow back and grab that rain. They're not going to pull nutrients as well. Now what happens when you put a layer of mulch on the surface of the soil is it gives a little barrier between that mineral material, and it puts an organic insulation layer over the top. So when the sun hits that mulch, it can get pretty warm on the surface, but it's not warm beneath it. If you pull that mulch back and you put your hand there, it's cool. And another benefit is that it stays moist. So instead of the sun baking down on top of the soil and drying that moisture out and heating it up, now you've got two benefits from that mulch right there. The sun is not reaching the surface of that soil and baking it hot and turning it into a solar battery, or a thermal battery, like Palmetto Paratrooper says in the comments. It is stopping that from happening by putting a little layer of insulation there. But it is also helping to keep the moisture from the rain from evaporating off the surface. So those feeder roots can go right up there and they can stay there, and the tree can run more efficiently. Have you ever been into a shipping container that's been sitting in the sun? Or go into a shed that sits right out there in the sun? A non-insulated container or a shed turns into an oven on hot days. Why is this? It's not insulated. If you want to be energy efficient in your home, the insulation is one of the first things that you check. You want to patch all the chinks. You want to make sure that they blow some fluff up into your attic. Or they have coatings now. They have these space age coatings that reflect away the solar energy. So if you're on a backyard scale, if you're insulating that soil in the heat of the summer, it helps a lot. But it also helps you in the winter. If it's cold and it's freezing, you're not freezing that soil immediately. You're giving it a little more flexibility. It takes longer to freeze through. You're insulating the ground. And if you want to keep tender perennials alive through frosts, usually you deep mulch over them. Cover them over with mulch. Why? Because it's an insulator. The air temperature might be 12 degrees, but there's a lot of energy that's stored down there in the ground that could be warmer. It might be 50 degrees beneath the mulch, while the air is below freezing. You are just kind of moderating everything that happens. Moisture levels, moderate. Heat levels, moderate. So right there's a couple of things to remember with mulch. So if you put in a new fruit tree and you cut the grass back around it and you put down a layer of mulch, that mulch is going to allow that tree to put feeder roots up there that won't be burned back when the heat comes out. That won't be hurt so badly when a frost comes. But also that will keep the moisture in the ground at a consistent moisture level instead of it just evaporating away quickly. So there's a few things going on there. But now we get into the compost everything side of the picture. As I write in the book, mulch isn't just an insulator or an aesthetic practice. It also is a slow release fertilizer, you could say. A slow release humus source. A slowly decaying blanket of carbon that increases the fungal activity, biological activity, etc. in your soil and provides nutrients. And this is where your choice of mulch becomes important. Because some mulches are very popular with homeowners because they do not break down quickly. You want it to look nice around your petunias for the entirety of the season. So you don't use, say, grass clippings. You could use grass clippings, but you're going to have to replenish it repeatedly through the season because it rots down quickly. It disappears quickly. So you put something like those big pine bark chips, or you get cypress mulch. I remember seeing the cypress mulch, or something like that, right? So you've got something that just breaks down really slowly. Some of those have oils in them that keep them from decay. Some of them are just naturally very, very resistant. Like the bugs just don't want to eat them. They have compounds in them that repel the insects. So that may be beneficial around your house and around your petunias, but around your fruit trees, you get the benefit of the insulation. You get the benefit of the moisture retention, but you don't get the benefit of it breaking down slowly and feeding the plant and creating a rich humus layer. For that, I prefer mulches that will break down of a variety of materials. And the best resource is if you could get it from the power company or an arborist, landscaper, somebody that's got a chipper, and you say, some azaleas went in it, some oak branches went in it, maybe some pine branches went in it, maybe some palmetto fronds went through it, maybe some hickory, maybe some aspen, maybe some maple, a wider variety, and not all things that take a long time to break down. If you've got a mix, and also if those materials were being chopped and mulched when they were green, there's all the extra minerals and nutrients in that. It's not just the very high carbon wood from the center of a tree trunk. You're actually getting the leaves, you're getting the vines that are on there, you're getting the mosses that get shredded with it, all that kind of stuff, all together. So it's a whole mix of materials, and some of those plants are better at retrieving certain nutrients than others are. So you're getting a whole range. Some of those trees might be leguminous nitrogen-fixing trees, like locust. You know, black locust got shredded and thrown in there. Cool. Great. There's probably a lot of nitrogen that came with that. You want a mulch that just makes a great big steaming heap. And yeah, it's still going to be high in carbon. That's fine. You don't have to worry about that. You don't actually want it to just burn up and compost down really quickly, or just release all the nitrogen into the soil really quickly. Like, say if you threw peanut hay or alfalfa hay or something like that out there, and it just rots down really quickly and just big burst of nitrogen and biological activity. You want it to be more on the carbon side of things, so it's going to break down slowly. But if you get that mixed tree company mulch, power company mulch, that's a really good mulch for the trees out in your yard. And it breaks down slowly. So this is what happened at my friend's house, the 4th of July party, when I was looking at their fruit trees. They put that material down with the trees 2 years ago, and it has slowly rotted down, and it has made this rich, crumbly humus. Now, this is in an area in lower Alabama where the soil tends towards acid and sandy. It's more pineland soil. It's good for growing cotton and peanuts and corn with fertilizer. But it's not what I would call prime gardening soil or prime orchard soil. But it has become that through the application of a huge amount of mulch. Now, there's a potential objection here. There's a potential objection. And that is, people will say, well, wood chips will steal the nitrogen from your soil. This is true. But it's not a problem unless you till it into the soil. If you till it into the soil, then the soil bacteria start working on it, and the fungi start working on it. And in order to break it down, they will yank all the available nitrogen out of the soil that they can grab to be able to process that carbon. So you may have a year or so of plants that just turn yellow and sick because they just can't get the nitrogen. Now, if you've ever read about the Mittleiter gardening method, they'll take a mixture of chemical fertilizers and grow in beds of sand and sawdust. Now, sawdust is just almost pure carbon. If you just tried to grow a plant in sawdust, that thing would just sit there and it would die. But if you throw fertilizer, if you throw enough fertilizer on it, it'll grow. You have to just hit the capacity that is required to balance that carbon that's sitting in there. And I just remember reading that you could just throw, you could just throw a bunch of sawdust into a garden bed and throw fertilizer on it. It just like, that is weird. But it works. People like it. People that like that method, they've got their perfect elemental mixes, and they just, you got a bed of sawdust that you grow in, and it's weed free. It's not my style of gardening, but I won't condemn I won't condemn it. People are growing food in it. I'm glad that they're growing food. And it's very clever. I appreciate how clever it is. But if you're looking at it from, it's going to steal all the nitrogen. You don't have to worry about that if you throw it on the surface of the soil. Because fall leaves fall all the time in the woods, and they're very high in carbon. Sticks fall on the ground in the woods. They're very high in carbon. And you can mulch a lot of trees. It's very high in carbon. Your petunias don't die when you mulch around them with whatever hardwood mulch or whatever you got, right? But if you till it into the soil, which is not the natural way, naturally speaking, it all falls on top of the ground, and there's that strata layer right there where it's being digested. It's not being digested down here where it's sucking the nitrogen out from all of that root zone. It's slowly breaking down up here. You've got your primary decomposers, you've got your worms and your beetles and termites and ants and whatever else happens to be working in there, pill bugs, leaving all this insect frass, worm castings, etc. And it's just making this beautiful, rich, humusy soil right there at that very surface layer. And that's not a problem because the plant roots have got all this other space that is not depleted of nitrogen that they can work inside of. Another thing that I like about the mixed, just shredded tree mulch is that it has a variety of size to it. As Soil and Soul Force says here, if you mulch with hardwood sawdust, that can cause a problem too, even if it's not worked in. Yes, because the particle size is so low and the carbon level is so high that it does start to get mixed into the soil horizon, and it also tends to mat up, and it tends to restrict. It just is too much. And sometimes when you have really fresh wood chips or fresh sawdust, it's also a problem because it's still got volatile compounds in it that have not off-gassed yet and rotted down a little bit. It's just a little bit too spicy when it's first been ground. But if you have this mixed up material that has chunks in it this big, and it's got tiny little bits in it this big, and it's got pieces this big and pieces this big, that mixture means it's breaking down at a slower rate. Some of it's breaking down fast, some of it's breaking down slower. It has a lot of space for the insects to live in, for the soil life to live in, for the fungi to grow through. It's not all tiny and it's not all huge. And that's pretty nice. It's pretty nice stuff. Now, if you wanted to go even further, let's say you're doing the orchard thing and you're mixing up the mulch things. The mulch varieties for it, right? You just got a big mix of hardwood mulch or whatever, and it's not the store stuff, not the stuff that's full of dye where it rains and it runs into your sidewalk and dyes your sidewalk some weird, unbelievable red-brown color. I mean, come on. I don't want any of that stuff. That's just weird. I've helped spread mulch for people before when they needed help. Helping on somebody's landscape before, and that's the stuff that they use, and it dyes your hands. That's just gross. Cheap dyed mulch. I don't want any. There's enough weird toxic stuff in the world. I don't need any more in my mulch. But it does make your HOA house look exactly like the neighbors, and I guess that's important to some people. But if you wanted to juice this process of mulching to really, really get plants kicking, that's where you get into the deep mulch, root stout, lasagna gardening, that kind of thing. Root stout would use a lot of straw, and that breaks down pretty nicely, and she would just keep throwing stuff on top of it. It breaks down pretty quickly. It tends to make a more bacterially dominated system that plants like. But I'm a little questioning of straw these days because of all the glyphosate and other chemicals that get used in the production of grains, and straw is usually the leftover stalks from grain, and I just don't trust it. But if you do what Patricia Lanza calls lasagna gardening, some people call it sheet composting, sheet mulching. There's a lot of names for it, but I think that her lasagna gardening, I like the lasagna gardening name. It's a good book too. Patricia Lanza writes about doing her lasagna gardening. She just tries to get as many different materials as possible and basically build a compost pile, a thin compost pile on top of the soil, and let it cold compost down and actually plant a garden right into it. So you might use some cardboard as a weed barrier at the bottom of it. You know, you've got an area you want to turn a piece of lawn into a garden that's going to be really rich really quickly. You mow. You put some cardboard down on top of the ground. You water the cardboard so it stays put. Then you start layering different organic materials on top of it. You got some expired produce, throw it out there. You got some banana peels, eggshells, kitchen scraps, throw it on top. You've got some peanut hulls, throw them out there. You got some rotten alfalfa from your bunny cage or something, throw that out there. You got some seaweed, throw some of that in there. Maybe you rinse it first depending on what you're going to grow and how salt tolerant it is. You got fall leaves, throw them out there. You got grass clippings, throw them out there. All these different materials, right? Chop down some weeds, throw it in there. Throw some hedge trimmings in there. Chop them up small and throw them in there. All these different materials now. You've got your greens and your browns. You got a quart of chicken manure. Just spread it over it. Throw some cow pies in there. You know? Whatever you got. Halloween pumpkins. You're going to end up with more pumpkins if you do that, but you can still throw them out there. Garden waste. Chop down all your potato stems. Yank your tomatoes out. Throw them on there. Smash it all down pretty good. Just get as many layers of different things as you can. It's kind of fun just gathering the materials and doing this. Water hyacinth. You got water hyacinth? That's a really good one. Yank up a bunch of water hyacinth and do the state a favor and throw it on your garden instead of letting it cover the canals, right? It rots down really nicely. It's like liquid fertilizer. As soon as it's out of the water, it's dead. It'll just die there and rot down. And then, if you've got some nice looking mulch over the top of it. Get this thing about a foot deep. It's like making a layer cake or a lasagna. Then you can put some pockets into that. Tuck a little soil in there, a little compost or something. Plant in some transplants. Poke a hole through the cardboard at the very bottom when you do that so they can put their roots down through. If you've got a mattress store or an appliance store or something like that, you can get great big sheets of cardboard and lay them down. That's the best way to do it. Big old sheets of cardboard. My daughter Daisy is doing that for her seed store right now. She's putting in some various rare things out in a portion of the greenhouse, and she is sheet mulching it by putting down some big sheets of cardboard on the ground, and then she's going to just plant a garden right through it. And what happens is you've blocked the weeds beneath, so the weeds beneath die. They die underneath that cardboard layer, and they rot down and they feed the soil, which attracts the worms. They love that rotting vegetation underneath. The worms really will start showing up. Then you've got, on top of that, all of your different layers. If you wanted to make a hot compost pile, you would do the same thing, except you would take that big area and you would cram it into at least a cubic yard of pile and let it get really hot and then turn it a few times. But in this case, you don't want that. It's going to rot down anyways. You're throwing it on the ground. It's going to rot. You let it cover that area and start rotting down, and all those layers have their own benefits. That if you had your rotten alfalfa, it's really high in nitrogen. It's going to give your plants a kick. You've got that hardwood mulch, really high in carbon. It's going to slowly break down. It's going to cover the surface. It's going to stop this, it's going to make everything look pretty for your HOA. And the kitchen scraps, there's a lot of moisture in there. They're going to rot. They're going to attract insects. That's great. You want insects in there. The insects are going to do the work for you. They break it down. Right thing in the right place. You will end up with the most beautiful soil in that area within a year. That area, it just becomes inches of beautiful compost. So instead of going and making your compost somewhere else and turning it and maybe sifting it and then bringing it to your garden and trying to give the compost to your garden, you basically just build your garden as a compost pile that is spread out. Super cool. Weed suppression, soil building, attracts the worms, grows the plants, instant garden. That's how you do a lasagna garden or sheet composting. I've done the same thing around my trees. Out in the little orchard that we planted, I did a video early this spring where I had a bunch of produce scraps and stuff, and I just threw it around the base of the tree and mulched over it. I didn't have my favorite mulch. I was mostly shredded pine material, but I did have a lot of kitchen scraps, and I just threw them down there and let them rot, and the tree likes it. The tree loves it. And also that rotting material, again, it brings the worms in, and then the worms convert that into very bacteria and fungi rich castings, which they very helpfully deposit all through the root zone of your fruit tree. It's a very well designed system, and you can take advantage of the way nature drops things on top of the ground to build soil and speed it up and really build decent soil quickly. In the South Florida Food Forest Project, we did the same thing. We had basically beach sand. We planted some trees in it, and we went and we gathered all the neighbors' yard waste bins and dumped them around the tree, and we made this big, ugly mound. There was no tree company mulch here. There were chopped up philodendrons and ornamentals and grass clippings and leaves and just all kinds of whatever was thrown in those yard waste bins. We chopped it up as best as we could and just made a big old ugly mound of material. And it is hot down there, and it rains. And between the heat and the rain, the biological activity broke that down so quickly that when I visited again in a few months and I dug underneath it, I was already finding a layer of nice, crumbly material that looked more like soil than anything I had ever seen in that backyard before. And earthworms showed up. I don't remember hardly ever seeing an earthworm ever. We used to dig in the sand back there all the time. We didn't see earthworms. But when we put this material in, an earthworm found it and had baby earthworms. And they had baby earthworms. So that it ended up being really a beautiful soil. And so long as we kept chopping and throwing material on top of it, or scavenging the neighbor's yard waste bins and dumping it in there, hey, if you're in an urban area, take advantage of the fact that the urban area is extremely wasteful. Tons gets thrown away. Lots of stuff gets thrown away. Totally wasted. All your neighbors will happily throw yard waste in your yard if you give them a spot to throw it. And you can turn that all into soil. They're exporting their fertility and you're importing it. You are taking fertility from everybody in that entire neighborhood. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. That is some of the power of mulch. So you could take it from just the bare minimum of insulating, holding on to soil moisture, and keeping the ground nice and cool, keeping the weeds suppressed. That's all great. But you also got to think of it as slow release soil fertility. And if you do one better by planting plants that you can chop and drop on the ground, or putting cover crops and slashing them down, you can continually replenish the mulch that you've put down without maybe having to go back and keep getting dump trucks dumped in the yard. One of the reasons that I don't always deep mulch everything is that for the space of ground that we want to cover, we can't do it all with mulch. We just can't get enough mulch. Chip drop is not really active in our area. I have tried bribing them. I'm going to put a link here for those of you who have not seen it. This is my daughter's seed store, and she that's what she does for her business. She bought her own car. She pays her own insurance. I mean, she didn't buy an expensive car. She bought like a $3,000 car, but she is very resourceful. She's a saver. She does a really good job with her seed company, and if you want to support her business, she carries some of our various landrace projects and a variety of different useful seeds and some stuff that you won't see otherwise. Another thing I want to share with you is that Scrubfest 4 is coming up. I just put a link to that. Scrubfest 4, I'm going to be talking about how to replace your grocery bills, how to greatly lower your grocery bills, and I have some extremely clever ideas. Elise Pickett from the Urban Harvest is going to be there. Shanna Alverson talking about food over pharma. She is former CrossFit lifting champion. She is a boss, and she's really good at balancing diet and health from somebody that is a highly trained athlete, and she's also a really good singer, and we're going to try and get her to sing live again. Tim Armstrong is going to be there from Eat Your Yard Jacksonville. If you don't know about Eat Your Yard Jacks, they are a really cool nursery. They do food forest projects. They are very community oriented. Tim is just a wealth of information about food forests, so he's going to be talking. And then Stan DeFreitas is going to be there, and Stan DeFreitas is Florida's Mr. Green Thumb. He wrote the book Florida Gardening that when I was 8 years old, my parents gave me a copy of it and helped launch my gardening career. I still have the copy of his book that my parents gave me, and he was on local radio. He's been on PBS. He was actually syndicated across Florida. He is a very knowledgeable Florida gardener and was a mentor to me, and I was able to actually get in touch with him. It's so cool. I mean, back then we didn't even have the internet, and I was able to get in touch with him, and I found that he is still going strong in his early 70s, teaching gardening, giving talks, and we talked on the phone for over an hour, and I said, would you please come and speak at Scrubfest? This would just make my life complete. And he said, no problem, man, I'm coming. So, yes! Boom! Yes. So, Stan DeFreitas is going to be there too. So, if you want to come to Scrubfest, it is an exclusive event, and the tickets are available, and it also, kids get in for free, because I know that there are a lot of large families out there. There's a lot of people that are trying to balance, and each kid you have to buy a ticket for. Come on, I don't want to discriminate against people that have large families. I would love to have all the kids that want to come to be able to go. So if you've got kids, you got a big family, no problem, don't worry about it. Kids come in for free, so 18 or younger, it's fine. Bring your kids. And the children are our future. They are our future gardeners. I got interested in gardening when I was a little kid, and I want other as many children as possible to have that opportunity, and it's a good educational event. But one of the big draws for it too is that we have a plant sale there where I go deep into my weird plant collection, and I am going to be bringing a lot of plants this year. And also the nursery that we have it at, he stocks the coolest stuff, and he just pulls out all the stops for the Scrubfest event, and he has got every kind of fruit tree, edible, perennial that you can imagine, and a lot of stuff that I had never seen before. He's just constantly stocking new cool food forest plants. So it's sort of the get a whole bunch of info, meet speakers, get some books, t-shirts, food vendors, have a really just get pumped up about gardening in the fall when the weather is starting to cool off and it's fruit tree planting season, and then get to shop a bunch of rare stuff. My daughter also brings her seeds. We always bring a few interesting things that we don't normally ever have. Like we had shell apples, which is a rare variety, which is totally sold out right now. We've had things like we brought coffee. We brought some rare varieties of sugarcane, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just all kinds of different things that are for plant collectors that we only have a limited amount of and that you don't see in your normal plant nurseries. So that is the Scrubfest event. The link is in the chat. And if anybody can make it, I'd love to meet you all. Usually we get 300-400 people show up, and it's a blast. It's a blast. It's just one day of let's save a ton of money on food and then spend it all on plants. That's, I mean, I always go home with more stuff. I always go wandering through the nursery at the beginning. I have my own plant nursery, and I go wandering through Sam's plant nursery. Hey, what's this? Hey, I think I might need some of those. I think I probably need that. I came back with like 6 different varieties of mulberry trees last time I went. So it is October 11th. October 11th, north of Fort McCoy, Florida. A really good event. Very, very worth attending. And this is our 4th annual. If it hadn't been so awesome, we wouldn't have kept doing it. Because it's a lot of work to set up. It's a lot of work to set up. I'm going to play some live music, too. It's going to be a blast. So, anyhow, I wanted to answer any gardening questions if we have. Cheap Seat says, where do you all stay at Scrubfest? That is a good question. I often stay at the Holiday Inn Express. There's a Holiday Inn Express that is in Silver Springs. I often stay there. Let me see if I can find... I found another place that is cool. Let me find it. Here we go. I will put this in the chat too. I found a place called Blue Sky Manor that's not very far away, and I really like the gentleman that runs it. We stayed with him this last time. There is also a motel that is in Silver Springs. There's also some campgrounds in the area. I tend to go for the Holiday Inn Express and Suites when I have my family with me because there is free breakfast. And when you have a bunch of children with you, the free breakfast is really nice. Also, we can pack a lot of kids into one of those suites. We usually get, you know, one if I have half the crew, 2 if I have the whole crew, and we just completely fill them up, and then we have a fantastic time eating a huge breakfast. So, Scrubfest is gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool. I may not be an arborist, but I did stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. Yeah, the breakfast is not bad either, you know. If you stay in Ocala, there are definitely more choices. The problem is that Ocala is about 35 minutes away, and usually we have to get there early in the morning. So, I agree. One plant becomes many plants, money well spent. I feel this way. I feel that fruit trees are one of the best investments that you can make. I don't feel bad buying fruit trees, ever, unless they die. But I have enough of them that live, you know, they pay themselves back. And they pay you dividends for years. They pay you dividends for years. I just took some air layers off of a mulberry that I got from Scrubland Farms. I did a few air layers on it and they took, so we potted them up this evening. And they look good. Nice to see all those little yellow roots growing way up in the air in a little ball. It's just the weirdest thing. Very cool. I'm gonna see if I can do a video showing you how we did it. It's not hard. It just looks like it would be hard. So, let me see here. I'm gonna find something. Find something for you guys. Gotta find something. I don't know what I did with it. I think I lost it. I think I lost my lyrics. I was gonna sing Rubbery Eggs. Let me see if I can find it. Woke up this morning to find you had gone. My keys were off the hook, cold eggs in the pan. 10 years we've been struggling, 10 years so far apart. 10 years on that Toyota, can't believe you stole my car. Was rubbery eggs for breakfast. And all I had for breakfast was rubbery eggs for breakfast. So I got on my bike and I drove through the rain. Was so late to work, my boss said not to come again. On the way home I kept thinking about the love we shared, about your long brown hair and how you took my car. And all I had for breakfast was rubbery eggs for breakfast. And all I had for breakfast was rubbery eggs for breakfast. When I finally got home, there was a message on my phone. Doc says that he's concerned about those tests that they'd done. Unemployed and maybe terminal. Could things get any worse? Then the radio man comes on and says Yellowstone has finally burst. So this is how I'll go, in a pyroclastic flow, and they'll dig me up one day, and everyone will know that all I had for breakfast was rubbery eggs for breakfast. Breakfast was rubbery eggs for breakfast. All he had for breakfast was, all he had for breakfast was, all he had for breakfast was rubbery eggs. All he had for breakfast was, all he had for breakfast was, all he had for breakfast was rubbery eggs. I hope you're burning inside my car. I hope you're burning inside my car. Ooh. How would you like your eggs cooked? Pyroclastically. Let's see what we got here. I see a couple of questions here. William says, I've been searching for good online nurseries that sell native plants like sumac and American plum. Well, I got an answer for you, I think, my friend. Try Woodlanders. Yeah. Woodlanders Nursery has a lot of interesting things. Another one you might try is Burnt Ridge. And sometimes there are even state forestry departments that will allow you to order bare root in the spring. Slim Future says, Dave, I keep getting fire ants in my fruit tree pots. Any advice? Yeah. Well, if you get fire ants inside your pots, get fire ants, that's what you got. The quickest way to get rid of them all is to take a bin and fill it up with water. Water in a bin. Put a few drops of soap in that water to break the surface tension and suffocate ants, because they've got these things called spiracules. I think it's called spiracules. They've got these things called spiracules that they breathe through. If you break the surface tension, they'll drown. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So basically all the ants will just die in the slightly sudsy water with a broken surface tension. It's the ant apocalypse. Another possibility, see if you want to go the chemical route, DDT. DDT for an extra silent spring. No, don't use DDT. Somebody's like, David the Good said to use DDT. I was able to order some from Russia, right? No, come on, guys. Come on, guys. It's a joke. But the Amdro fire ant bait is not that toxic. If you put it near, they eat the bait and then they die over the next couple of weeks. You just put it around near where they go foraging. So 90s version next. Oh, by the way, if you haven't bought it, get my book Compost Everything, The Good Guide to Extreme Composting. There's a link at the top of the chat. Please support this channel by buying books. Much appreciated. It will change everything you know about composting. I decided to locate all the jumper worms in my yard and throw them in my compost. My compost umber. Or it could be like, yeah. That's a little hard to do there, though. It's hard on the voice. Yeah, start playing Ride of the Valkyries while shaking a can of WD-40 with a lighter in hand. You like fire? Fire ants? You like fire? Slim Future says, I can't pick up a 25-gallon pot to put it in my bin. Totally understand that. Yeah. Yeah, in that case, I would probably sprinkle some Amdro fire ant bait around it. It's not that toxic. You may try pouring a watering can full of slightly soapy water through it and see what happens. Doesn't seem to hurt the plants. I mean, it's worth trying. Maybe they'll just drown in their nest. But man, they are really annoying. Bobbert said he dumped molten aluminum down one ant nest that just wouldn't die. It worked. I'm sure it worked. But it's probably detrimental to plant roots. The fountain song. What is the fountain song you play in your video intros? It's just a drum loop that I found from somewhere, like an old funk loop. I do not remember. It's a sample I got somewhere. Yeah. Oh, so they call you fire ants. You climb up my socks. Yes, they call you fire ants. You'll buy whatever that you got. Thing is about fire ants. Thing is about fire ants is that they don't actually bite. They actually just clamp down with their jaws. They clamp down with their jaws and they use a stinger repeatedly. That's why they look so weird and hunched up when they're biting in your calf, in your tender little calf. Okay, that is really dumb. I'm sorry that I did that to you guys. I'm just gonna stop right now, put down the guitar and step away. I hate fire ants, mosquitoes, and squirrels. Yeah, I think it was an ancient Roman torture if somebody cut down a fruit tree, got thrown into a sack with fire ants, mosquitoes, and squirrels, and thrown into the Tiber. So anyhow, you guys have a wonderful rest of the evening. If you want to compost everything the easy way and support this channel, Compost Everything, the good guide to extreme composting. I've had a lot of fun doing these good streams again. I'm gonna keep doing this. It's been very nice, especially because it's hot outside, and I like just doing these streams instead of necessarily filming a video outside in the heat. The lenses are steaming up on the camera. I have to actually take the camera outside and let it sit for about a half an hour so the lens doesn't just steam up. It's really funny. I skipped your question. What was your question? You better ask fast, Nikki. I'll probably stream tomorrow night. Thank you. Buy the Jack Broccoli books. Absolutely. You have a lot of. Good job, Sam. And the Seminole Pumpkins. Awesome. All right, have a when to graft mulberry? Okay, I'll answer that, Blinn. When to graft mulberry? Graft it before it wakes up in the spring. Otherwise, you might be able to get away with bud grafting, but I've never tried it. I've never tried grafting during the active growing season. I have grafted mulberries in the spring. So, God bless. Have a great evening. Go compost something. Go throw things on the ground. Go rob your neighbor's yard waste bins, if you live in that sort of a neighborhood. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green.